Hey everybody, welcome back to the video. In this one, we're going to be learning about setState in ReactJS. So let's get started. So we learned use state hooks in ReactJS, that is for functional components, but I also said you can use it for class components, but not in the exact same way. So today we're just going to be seeing about how you can do it in this class. So I'm just going to have a class and we're going to have a counter or example, which we already did in our functional components, and we also did a second example of message, I guess. So we're going to have a counter, and this is going to extend to the component. Let's go ahead and do that. So we have a component, so it automatically imports us. So yeah, we kind of didn't work much about classes since functional components were easy. We were using those. So today it's kind of like working with class components. So what we're gonna have is we're gonna have a constructor first of all, and there we go. So now inside this constructor, you want to have props. So this is default, you have to, and you can also use super, and we can have props right there. So you can do that. And now what you can do is, this is where it gets kind of confusing for most of the people. So if you see my the use state hook video, I explained like initial state and the set state and stuff. So it's kind of like this. So this basically sets the initial state or the state we start with. So we are gonna be starting with a count of 0. We are basically gonna have a count of 0 as our first set, or at the first time. So since we are in a class, we are gonna render this and also return this, and there we go. So now we're gonna have an h1, and this is gonna display our count. There we go. So now what we want to do is we want to have something like this, and we want to access the state.count so that we can notice our count if it works or not. So yeah, and now let's see first of all if this works or not. So let's go ahead and see. So we got an error, so let's go ahead and see this. Export default imported as counter. So let's go ahead and see. Okay, we didn't even export this. I probably exported this in my app.js already. So yeah, export default, and we can export our counter. So now it's not gonna come, I guess. Let's go ahead and go to there. So yeah, now it's not there, so let's go ahead and remove all those. So count 0, so that works. So it's working. We are starting with 0. So our 0 is our count. So if I say 1, let me reload this. So there we go. It's 1 right there. So this basically says the initial state. So I can also make a thing right here. So our comment. So let's say initial state. So that's basically our starting state right there. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a button so that we can increase them and stuff. And by the way, you can use a div tag or so, but I'm just gonna use a fragment. Let me go ahead and do that right there. Oh wait, oops, let me go ahead and adjust this. And there we go. So now that works. So what we can do is we can give those spaces right there. So now, yeah, that's a lot better. Now I guess it should not be there. So yeah, we are starting with 0 and we have a little button right there. Let me go ahead and show you guys. So that's our button. So if you guys can see now, so that's our button right there. So let me go ahead and do something real quick. So let me go ahead and resize this console. And yeah, so now what we're gonna have in the button is basically increase plus 1. So this button is basically gonna increase the count by 1. And we are also gonna have a second button which is gonna increase the count by 5. And I'm gonna say why though. So we can do increase by 5 right there. So yeah, so now we don't have any method right here inside the class so that we can have an onClick. So we can go ahead and create those methods. So till here is pretty clear. We're basically having our starting state and we're basically creating buttons. So now we're gonna have two methods, which is basically increase by 1 and increase by 5. So let's go ahead and start off by increase by 1. So that's our first method. So we're gonna have code inside this. So normally what many people is gonna do is they're just gonna think we can do it a normal way. This.state.count equals, and then they're gonna copy this and then do +1, and they think that's gonna work, but it's not. +1. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and see if it works or not. So increase by 1 and it doesn't work. So it actually doesn't work. So if you guys want, I'm gonna keep it on click. By the way, I forgot that. So let me go ahead and put an arrow function, and let's go ahead and put increase by 1. So normally this is not gonna work still. So let me see if I did. Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and have that. So yeah, so now it's gonna work, I guess. So many people would think that, but it's not. So there we go, our count doesn't work, so increase by 1, nor even increase by 5. But if we, let's try to do console.log, and we're gonna do this dot set state dot count, or I guess I copied that, yeah, we did. And let me go ahead and reload this. So, but in our console, it does work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We can do that. But in here, it doesn't work because we are not re-rendering this. So it's not a problem with this render, so many people would think, but it's a problem with this code. So what we can do is we can remove this and we can use setState. So that's the great thing about setState. It automatically says the code to re-render and stuff. So yeah. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna do this dot set state, and just like that. And inside this is what you can do. So you can do count, and this dot set state dot count. Oh wait, we did it wrong. So normally you can do that, but that's not a good way to do it. But what I would mention better doing is you can do something like this. So let's go ahead and remove all this since we don't need that. So you can have an arrow function inside this, and you can do that. And there's something called previous state already defined, so let's go ahead and have that right there. So that's previous state. And now you can have something like this in here, so you can have that, and you can have your code inside this. So let's go ahead and have our code, and let me just end this right there. So now what we can do is we can do in a normal way or an easy way. Previous state plus, and we can do 1. So now what we can do is we can go right here, and let me reload this. So normally if I would do this, it's not gonna work. So it's not working right here. So object something is given us, but that's not what we wanted. So whenever you have previous state, you want to have what you want of it. So we want the count inside it. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and reload this. And now let's remove the console since we don't need it. So we can remove that. And whenever I click increase plus 1, that works. I can do it how many times I want. But increase plus 5 doesn't work. So if you want to increase by 5, what we can do is we can copy this and paste this again or so. But instead, what you can do is you can do it increase by 5. Let's go ahead and do that. And this is a short way you can do this, so I just want to include this because some people would just write the code and just say increase plus 5, which is gonna make the code a lot harder. But instead, what you can do is you can call that function which we already created, or the method. You can do this 5 times. I mean, this is not the way you can do it, but I mean, if you're writing a short code, you can do this. So yeah. So increase plus 1 works. I can do increase plus 5, but it's not gonna work because we are not having any on click. So let me go ahead and have an on click right here. Equals, we're gonna have an arrow function, and it's gonna be, let's go ahead and do this dot increase by 5, and there we go. So now that's gonna work. So let me reload this. Increase plus 1 works. So let me do it till 6, and increase plus 5, 11, increase 16, 21, and then it's gonna be 26, and then 31, increase plus 1. It's kind of like creating a little counter, so you can even have increase plus 10 or so. So you can do this. So that's why I just had this increase plus 5, increase by 5 or so, the method. So that's what I wanted to say, guys. I mean, this is not a lot important, but I just want to say you can also call inside your method. So that's pretty much about setState. So that's it for today's video. See you in the next video. Until then, bye bye.